So this was a very interesting weekend when it came to Berkshire Hathaway and Warren Buffett, because there was some big news that came out which does raise some concerns on US stocks and makes you wonder if Buffett sees something bad for the US stock market that others don't see right now. So if you weren't aware, Buffett actually made a $6 billion bet outside of the US, and many investors are wondering, what does this mean? What does it mean for the future of the US stock market? Why is he investing in US stocks? And what are the companies that he actually put this money into? So that's all the stuff I'm going to discuss in today's video. You guys are going to get a ton of insight here as to kind of my thoughts on why he made this move and really what it means in the grand scheme of things. So if you guys do enjoy this video, consider hitting that like button down below because it helps the channel out tremendously. So Berkshire Hathaway is currently a $500 billion giant, making it one of the largest companies in the world, and the business sitting on $146 billion in cash. The face of this company, Warren Buffett, who's often regarded as the greatest investor ever, is closely monitored by investors around the world, and it was quite surprising that he didn't make any meaningful purchases with this cash during the March or April lows. And most recently, we've seen news that he's been selling off some of his bank holdings. Now, Buffett has been a long-time believer in the US economy and the banking system here, but his recent portfolio moves say otherwise and has investors scratching their head a little bit. Then this weekend, we got news that Berkshire deployed $6 billion in cash, making it quite a meaningful and significant purchase when you look at the dollar value here. $6 billion, guys? Not a joke. The surprising part, though, was not that he invested money, but where he invested his money. No, it was not in the US, it was not with US companies, it was actually in Japan with some Japanese companies. The companies he purchased include Mitsubishi Corporation, Mitsui & Co., Itochu Corp., Sumitomo Corp., and Marubeni Corp. His position sizes here were quite significant, with a 5% stake in each business, and in Japan, these 5 companies are known as the Sogo Shosha, also called the general trading companies, as these companies are conglomerates. They're massive companies, and they play a vital role in the Japanese economy and are increasingly becoming global players. When you think of conglomerates, the easiest example really for most of you guys to relate to is 3M. It's such a large company. There's so many sectors all over the US and around the world, and some of these businesses that he's investing in right now are similar to that concept. In a quote released from Buffett himself, he said that these 5 major companies have many joint ventures throughout the world and are likely to have more of these partnerships. And then he also went on to say that he hopes that in the future there may be opportunities of mutual benefit with these 5 businesses. And now, kind of digging deeper into this, I was like, wow, Buffett made a pretty significant purchase here in the last quarter. But guys, actually, this wasn't done in the last quarter. It was just released and filed over this past weekend. But this has been something that's been building up for quite a while. They've been building their position for a little bit of time now. The stakes these companies have been built over the past year according to news releases, and these were done through regular purchases on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, but have only just been disclosed. This could mean that they've been buying shares well before the global issue, and only now they are disclosing this to investors. But what's more exciting, I would say, is that they're willing to build these positions to a 9.9% stake. So there could be a lot more buying that happens over the coming weeks, months, quarters, and years. Now, as investors, primarily investing in US companies like myself, you gotta wonder, with the thousands and thousands of companies that are publicly listed and the even thousands and thousands more that are private businesses based in the US, why does Buffett choose to go international to another country? Not only that, but pretty much across the world to Japan and invest in businesses there. If you didn't already know, Japan has been struggling with their economy with not much GDP growth over the last 20 years. So why is Buffett investing in these Japanese companies? Is it something that he sees that we don't? Maybe he expects this long sideways move that they've been seeing over the last 20 years to pretty much reach a conclusion sometime soon. Maybe it's just consolidating, and he sees some sort of upside here where things start moving higher in the country. That's possible. Or maybe he just feels the valuations of these businesses in Japan are just too cheap to pass up on, so you want some exposure there. And you know what better way than going to some of the largest companies in Japan that have a good footing in the Japanese economy. Now, because the Japanese economy is moving sideways for so long, it's quite possible that a lot of these businesses have been undervalued for quite a while here, and now Buffett sees it's a good time to start building up some positions there, and other investors around the world have been doing so as well. And this could really be a good spot to kind of throw some extra cash you have lying around into some assets that are outside of the US. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, as you know, the US and a lot of other countries around the world have been printing a ton of money lately because of the global issue. Now, maybe Buffett sees this as a possible issue that's going to hit us in the next few months or few years, and he wants to start diversifying outside of the US. Maybe that's happening. But guys, $6 billion is not a very significant amount of money for Berkshire Hathaway that has, like we said, almost $150 billion in cash. Now, of course, they have much more money in assets and stocks and all that other stuff. So when you look at their overall value of $500 billion, $6 billion is a drop in the bucket. But hey, being diversified on a global scale, maybe it makes sense in these times, especially with an economy like Japan that's been relatively stable, although it's not growing. And maybe Buffett sees that as an opportunity now to just store some of his cash, get exposure to the global market and just leave it at that. Honestly, I don't really know, no one else really knows what the true reason for this purchase is and why they're suddenly so interested in the Japanese economy and these Japanese stocks particularly, but I wouldn't really look too far into it. Like I said, $6 billion, kind of a drop in the bucket, and if they were truly bullish on this economy, they would probably be putting a lot more money into it. And also keep in mind that this was really bought over the last year, so this could have been done well before the global issue hit, and then after the global issue, they just saw even more discounts, so they added a little bit more. So it's not solely because of what's going on right now with the money printing that is causing Berkshire and Warren Buffett specifically to go out and seek opportunities outside of the US. Now, of course, the question you may be asking is it worth changing our investment strategy now because Buffett is buying Japanese stocks, or should we also be looking at Japanese stocks? Honestly, guys, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be sticking with US companies. I see a lot more upside in US companies. I see the future of these businesses that are growing right now and how they're really changing the world for the better. You have some massive giant companies out there and some smaller companies that are doing great things here in the US. And honestly, there's thousands of companies in the US that I can invest in that diversify me quite well and have exposure to the worldwide market. So that's kind of how I personally choose to invest in the markets. Now, I'm not really telling you what to do. I'm not really saying you should or shouldn't buy any Japanese stocks, but just remember, tiny portion of Buffett's portfolio. They haven't really put too much money in the grand scheme of things into these Japanese companies. So until we see them put tens of billions of dollars into these companies, we can't really make any conclusions here as to if he's not bullish on the US economy anymore and if his focus and the shift now is in the Asian markets like in Japan. Now, what I will kind of say though is that valuations for US companies have gotten pretty steep in the last few months. In March and April, we saw some pretty good discounts. I did some buying. I'm sure you guys did some buying as well. But over the last couple of months, things have just gotten out of whack. I personally can't justify most stocks out there. There are still a few businesses here and there that make sense, are trading at fair values, and I am continually buying. However, when you look at your exciting companies, Tesla, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, take your pick of these great growth tech companies, the valuations there are just out of whack. I can't get myself to put more cash into those investments, and it just is what it is. That being said, there's no guarantee that things will go down anytime in the short term. I'm here for the long term. I will keep buying businesses that I believe are undervalued, and there are a few out there like my VIP members know. But either way, guys, let me know in the comment section down below whether you agree with Buffett here, whether you think that his move here with these Japanese stocks is the beginning of him building much larger stakes in Japanese stocks and international stocks in general, or is this kind of like a one-off thing where he just buys a little bit of stakes in these companies just to have some global exposure. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below, guys. But either way, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to invest positively, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.